Hi, everyone. My name is Elisa Kazarowski, and over the course of the next few videos, I am going to be sharing with you 6 strategies for building strong connections with students. So in this first video, we are going to talk about the why. Why is this even important? Who does this benefit? So let's jump right in. I'm a longtime Indiana educator. I have worked in K through 8 schools and in administration over the past 15 or 20 years. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of the things that I've learned along the way with you in these next few videos. We're going to cover a lot over the course of these videos, including the things that you see here on the screen. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Why is it important that we strengthen our connections with students? I often use the terms build relationships, strengthen, or maintain, right? So with some students, we need to actually build a relationship with them, and others, we need to figure out ways that we can maintain that relationship or make it even stronger. Why is this important, though? So here's just a little tidbit from a research that was study, excuse me, that was done at Harvard University's Center on the Developing Child. And what they found was that the single most common factor for children who develop resilience is at least one stable and committed relationship with an adult in their life. So I like to think about this as we have 2 kids at our school, they're siblings, they come from the same home environment, seemingly, and same experiences, school, all of those things are the same for each of them, but one of them is on a positive trajectory in life and we know is going to do great things, and the other maybe we're not so sure about or we're worried about. So what this study is saying is that the difference between those kids, for sibling A, the one who was on that positive trajectory, the most common factor for kids like that sibling A is one stable and committed relationship with an adult in their life. And some of our kids come to school and they have 2 of these people at home, right? And their mom and dad. Some of our kids have multiple in family members and other family friends, neighbors, coaches, people in their lives. But then we also have some kids who are coming to school looking for this person because they don't have it in any aspect of their life. And thinking about my own children, I know that they have 2 people at home that are stable and committed, but that doesn't mean that I don't want them to have those people at school, on the sports teams that they're a part of, or in the youth groups that they participate in, because we know then that they have those people in each of those aspects that they can go to if something goes wrong, that they can go to talk to if they need an adult, right? I want them to have those people at school in all of those different areas of their lives because they're not with me all day, every day. They're at school for 7 or 8 hours a day. They're at practices for a couple of hours a day. I want them to know that they have people in those places that are in their corner. I'm going to take you through just a few little graphics that look just like this that kind of answer that question of why. Why is this important? One thing that you need to keep in mind as we go through these graphics, though, is that we have to know that, like anything in education, this is not a we're going to wave our magic wand and these things just happen overnight, right? They take time. It's really important to ingrain these things into the culture of our classrooms and our school buildings so that as kids are moving from year to year to year and seeing the same things and experiencing similar things, they become accustomed to them and we start to build up these habits. So our first one here is that positive relationships and interactions increase motivation. So think about a class that you've been in or a teacher that you've had that made you feel unsafe in the classroom, unsafe to participate, to share, to answer questions, because you knew that that teacher was going to make fun of you or mock you or belittle you for having the wrong answer, right? This is the opposite of that. When we are providing kids with positive feedback or positive interactions, it doesn't have to necessarily be academic or behavioral feedback. We can just be having those positive interactions with kids and giving them feedback about a part of their life that they've shared with us. What's happening when we give that feedback is a dopamine release. In their brain, they get a little hit of dopamine. And that dopamine is a feel-good chemical. It gives us positive feelings. It's the same reason on the flip side of the coin that we have things like social media addiction, right? Because that dopamine release that we get when things are shared or liked or hearted or retweeted or whatever you want to say, right, on social media, we get that same dopamine release when that happens, and it makes us want to post the thing again on social media. Okay. So that's kind of an example of sort of using this for evil, right? We want to use this power for good. So we're giving kids the positive feedback, the positive interactions. They get that little release of dopamine in their brain that makes them feel good. And then they're motivated to want that more. Okay. So they're motivated to do that thing again or share with you again or participate in class because they are motivated to get more positive feedback. So we just kind of keep going around and around. All right. Positive relationships with our students create a sense of safety. When we are socializing with our kids, we're talking with them, we're laughing with them, we're having those little sidebar conversations that we have throughout the day. Now we have an oxytocin release. And oxytocin is a chemical in our brain that is going to help us create bonds or the idea that psychological safety. Okay. And so when we feel safe with people and we feel like we are in a safe space, then our participation increases. Going back to that example that I've used many times now, if our students feel safe in our classroom, they are going to feel safe raising their hand and participating, answering a question, giving something a try, taking a risk that maybe they wouldn't otherwise take, because they know that the culture of your classroom is one of risk taking and safety and compassion and cheerleading. Whatever those characteristics are, they know it's going to be okay, whatever the outcome is of that risk. Positive relationships build new pathways for learning. When we know about our students, we know their families and their interests and their hobbies and what makes them tick, we can use that to tap into their background knowledge as we are teaching, which as teachers, we do this all the time, right? We know that when we tap into background knowledge and we connect it to something new that we're learning, that is just solidifying that new learning in our students' brains. So really what's happening is that we are helping them to build new neural pathways in their brain. We're strengthening the neural pathways that already exist in their brain. Those are the connections that are being made that help them to remember things that we teach them. This is one of the reasons why storytelling is a great way to learn, right? And when I'm at a school training a group of teachers, I tell lots of stories about students from my past or my own children and my family as I'm teaching, because those stories are the things that are going to be remembered, right? Those stories are going to be remembered more than any fact or statistic that I can throw at them. And they're constantly making connections. It's one of the reasons this is making connections is such a big deal in school, right? We talk about text to text connections and text to self connections. The more we can make those connections, the better off they're going to be in terms of retaining that new knowledge. And then lastly, here's the big one, but remember what I said. This takes time, right? We can't wave our magic wand and all of our kids are just super well behaved. As we go through our year, as we're going through our instructional day. We are modeling the words and the actions and the traits that we want to see from our students, and our students are watching, right? We know this. A great example of the other side of the coin for this one is when we meet a parent for the first time. And we meet that parent and we think, oh, everything makes sense now, right? Everything has come together because now I understand why that student behaves the way they do or talks the way they do, says the things that they say. It all makes sense because in our brain, we have something called the mirror neuron system. And that is activated when we're watching what's going on in the world around us. Think about a baby. When we are looking down at a crying baby in a crib that has maybe just woken up from a nap, if we go into that baby and we start screaming at the baby and saying, "What's wrong? Why are you crying? Stop crying." What is that baby going to do? Cry more. But if we go in calmly and we have a smile on our face and we're quiet and we're asking the baby, "What's wrong?" and we go to pick up the baby, that baby's brain is going to send a message. This is safe. This is okay. We can calm down. This person is going to take care of my needs. That is another example of the mirror neuron system doing its job. Okay, so as we're modeling, our kids are observing, they're watching, and they are learning how we go out and speak to people in the world, how we behave in different situations, and their brains begin to practice those actions. It doesn't happen overnight. And yes, we are up against something big in that our kids are going home to different modeling, different words, different actions every night, right? That is why this is so important that we start to build this out as a culture in our building so that we know that our kids are going to see these certain things year after year after year. All right. Which of our kids need strong connections at school the most? Think about it for a minute. Little pop quiz. It was a trick question because it's all of them. It's not just certain kids that fit in a certain box or are frequent flyers or whatever we want to call those kids. All of our kids need this. Remember, I talked about my own kids. They have two parents at home who love them and care for them and are very committed in having a strong relationship with them. But I want them to go to school and have multiple of those people at school as well. One of the greatest things about all things trauma informed is that the practices are simply best practice for all kids. Okay? They are not just for kids that fit in a certain box of having experienced trauma or having certain life experiences. These strategies and everything that we're going to talk about in this series of videos is just best practice for all kids. Who benefits from having these strong connections at school? Is it just students? It's not just students, because you as the teacher, as the educator, as the school staff member, you benefit just as much as those students do. Okay? Think about this. So there's a little blurb from a study here down at the bottom, and it seems kind of obvious, right? That this study revealed or found that a teacher's relationship with their students was the best predictor of how much the teacher experienced joy versus anxiety in the classroom. It makes sense. I want you to think for a second. Think about 1 year over on this side, one class that you have had that was just it was the greatest group of kids you've ever taught. You loved coming to school that year. You loved getting into the classroom. They were fun. They were funny. You did so much learning. Okay? So that's on one side. And then on the other side, think about that year that perhaps you've had where you just had a really difficult, challenging group of kids, and you did not look forward to going to school every day. And you knew that every day was going to be one behavior issue after another. And you did everything that you could to get through to those kids, but it was a hard year. Well, this makes sense, right? It's sort of obvious. When we have relationships with our kids, we have increased job satisfaction. We're happier. We want to be in the classroom. We're going to be able to have more fun. Our students benefit in terms of their behavior, in terms of their academic outcomes. Overall, we have an enhancement of all of these social emotional learning competencies because everybody is just happier because we have those bonds. We have that sense of belonging. We feel safe and loved and connected and cared for. So these strategies are for the benefit of everyone, right? Not just our kids. This is a quote that I just love from a book that I also just love. And that book is What Happened to You? Conversations on Trauma, Resilience, and Healing by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah. And the quote goes like this: relational health is more predictive of your mental health than your history of adversity. Relationships are a better predictor of your mental health than your history of trauma, than your history of stress. Relationships matter. They matter in so many, many ways. So I want you to just take a second and reflect on your reasons for wanting to build stronger connections with kids. Okay? As we get into the next video, we are going to dive into each of these strategies. But as we end this video, be thinking about that question. Why do you want to build, strengthen, or maintain your relationships with your students?